Can you guess which country has won the most Winter Olympic medals just by looking at it? I think you might be surprised by the results. Okay, do you have your guess in? All right, let's start counting it down. So number 15 is Iceland. They have won no Winter Olympic medals, despite the fact that they have ice in their name, which always makes me laugh. But they have won 4 Summer Olympic medals, as you can see here. Next, East Germany. They have won 110 Winter Olympic medals at just 6, participating in 6 games. So if we go down here, we can see what they're particularly strong in. So they did well in the luge, the speed skating, the bobsleigh, biathlon, and figure skating. I'm going to talk more about Germany later, but a very impressive appearance with just coming in at 6 games. Also coming in at 6 games is Russia, which competed for the first time in the Winter Olympics in 1994 and has managed to win 118 medals at those appearances. So we can go down here and see how they've done. The last time Russia competed at a Winter Olympics was 2014. Since that time, they've competed as a bunch of other teams. I'll leave a note in the description of why and how they've competed as different teams here. We can see all the different teams that they've done. So just 6 appearances as Russia, and they're particularly strong at cross-country skiing, figure skating, biathlon, and speed skating. So moving on, in 12th place is France, which has won 138 medals, and they've competed in every single Winter Olympics, so 24 times, and they actually hosted the very first Winter Olympics in Chamonix, and they've hosted them again in 68 in Grenoble, and 1992 in Albertville, and they're set to host the 2030 Olympics as well. So France does particularly well in alpine skiing, the biathlon, freestyle skiing, figure skating, and snowboarding. Continuing down the list, we have Italy in 11th place, having won 141 medals. Again, like France, they've competed in every single Winter Olympics games. They avoided getting banned from the 1948 games following World War II, which is something that happened to Germany. And you can see here that they hosted the Winter Olympics in 1956, and again in 2006 in Turin, and are currently hosting the 2026 Winter Olympics. So what do the Italians do well in? Again, alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, luge, short track speed skating, and the bobsleigh. Now, entering the top 10, we have the Netherlands, who's competed in all but 2 of the Winter Olympic Games. They did not compete in the very first ones, and they did not compete for some reason in the 1932 Games. I'm not really sure why, but over all their appearances, they've won 147 medals. They have never hosted the Winter Olympics, despite their kind of being in the top 10, although they did host the 1928 Summer Games in Amsterdam. So if you look here, it's basically all down to one sport. It's speed skating. The Dutch are the best speed skaters in the whole world, having won 133 medals. And if you include short track speed skating, that's basically almost all their medal total there. Moving on, we'll go to Switzerland. So in 9th place with 168 medals. Again, the Swiss have been to every single Winter Olympics. They've hosted them in 1928 and in 1948 following World War II, but haven't hosted since then. So they are particularly strong at sports that you'd expect, like alpine skiing, bobsleigh, snowboarding, and freestyle skiing. All right, so moving on now, we're down to Finland in 8th position with 175 medals. Again, a country that's been to every single Winter Olympic Games. They have never hosted the Winter Olympics, though. They hosted the Summer Games in 1952 in Helsinki, but never the Winter Games. And they are strong at cross-country skiing, as you'd expect, speed skating, ski jumping, which has got to be one of the craziest sports out there. I don't know how anyone gets into that one. The Nordic Combined, which is a cross-country skiing combined with ski jumping, and interestingly is the only sport that women are not allowed to compete in. I'm not really sure why, but it's the only sport that women are still not competing in. And you can see here also particularly strong in ice hockey. Moving on to number 7, we have Sweden, Again, a country that's competed in all the games, and they've won 177 medals, which is marginally better than Finland. They've only ever hosted a Summer Games as well, so this time all the way back in 1912 in Stockholm, and never hosted a Winter Games, despite being almost in the top 5. They are strong in the sports you'd expect: cross-country skiing, alpine skiing, the biathlon, which to me is the most impressive of all the winter sports, because you have to do this cross-country skiing and then get your heart rate right down, shoot some targets, and then get up and get going again. Speed skating, curling, and ice hockey. All right, continuing on, we have the Soviet Union. Obviously no longer in existence, but they're number 6 ranked overall, 194 medals. The Soviet Union hosted the Summer Games in 1980, but never hosted the Winter Games during their existence. And they've got a real kind of spread of kind of things here. They were good at cross-country skiing, speed skating, figure skating, and the biathlon. Surprisingly, ice hockey, they did all right at. They won 9 medals, but not as good as you might have expected given their kind of reputation. Okay, entering the top 5 now. My home country of Canada. So if you thought Canada was going to be the winner there, unfortunately you'd be wrong. Canada has done really well. We've been to every single Winter Olympics. We've also hosted the Winter Games in 1988 and in 2010. What do Canadians do well at? We've done, in terms of medals won, speed skating, which actually surprised me a little bit, and short track speed skating are the top 2. We're the top country in freestyle skiing with 30 medals. Figure skating, which I thought maybe we'd do better at, we still have 29 medals. Ice hockey, which is really the only one that matters for Canadians. We're the top country there, again with 23 medals. Snowboarding with 17, and we're also the best country in the world when it comes to curling. Overall, we have 225 medals, which is only good enough to put us into 5th position. Coming down at number 4 is a bit of a surprise, Austria. So little Austria has competed at every single Winter Games. It managed to avoid bans in 1924, which affected Germany, despite Austria being involved in World War I, and also the 1948 Games it was able to participate in, again, despite World War II. So they have hosted the Winter Olympics twice, in 1964 and 1976, both in Innsbruck. And for a country of its size, it has really punched above its weight. You can see here that's basically down to alpine skiing. They won 128 medals there. Also doing well in ski jumping, luge, figure skating, and the Nordic combined, and snowboarding. Overall, that's enough for 251 medals, which is enough to put them into 4th position. Coming in at number 3 is Germany. So Germany's got a very bizarre history. They've won 267 medals as a unified German team, but Germany's actually competed as different countries over the years. So in the Winter Olympics, they were not allowed to compete in the 1924 Games because of World War I, their participation there. They were not allowed to compete in the 1948 Games, again because of World War II. They competed in 1952 as a German team, although it was really just West Germany because East Germany boycotted it. Then between 1956 and 1988, between 1956 and 1964, there was a unified team of Germany, which is both members of West Germany and East Germany competing as a single team. Then they split into separate teams from 1968 to 1988 into East and West Germany, and then they've come together again since 1992 as a unified team. So the total here, the 267 medals, is just referring to the unified German team. If you added Germany's totals all together, they'd actually have well over 400 medals and would be enough to launch them into 1st place, but that's not the way things are counted. Germany also, as a country, has only ever hosted the Winter Olympics once, and back in 1936. This is the same year as the much more famous 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics. In terms of sports, they have done really well in the biathlon. They're the best country in the world when it comes to the luge. So you can see there, 43 medals. Speed skating, they've done well, 38, and they are the best country in the world when it comes to the bobsleigh. And also strong in alpine skiing, cross-country skiing, ski jumping, and the Nordic combined. All right, we're now entering the top 2. Now, can you guess which country is the top country and which country is number 2? So if you thought that the United States would be the top country, you are wrong. They are the second best team when it comes to the Winter Olympics. They have won 330 medals, one of only two countries to win over 300 Winter Olympic medals. They've competed at every single Winter Olympics since it was founded in 1924. The U.S. is the number one ranked country when it comes to the Summer Olympics, and the number one ranked country when it comes to the overall medal totals between all Olympic Games, but still only good enough for number two for the Winter Olympics. The United States has hosted the Winter Olympics 4 times in its history, probably the most famous of which, maybe just because I'm Canadian, was the 1980 Lake Placid Olympics, where you have the famous Miracle on Ice where the Americans beat the Soviet team. But they have also hosted it in 1932 in Lake Placid, 1960 in Squaw Valley, and most recently in 2002 in Salt Lake City. And again, they're going to be hosting it in Salt Lake City again in 2034, apparently. So, in terms of sports, speed skating is where they've won the most medals, but they are the best country in the world when it comes to figure skating, 54 medals. Alpine skiing, they've done well. They're the best country in the world when it comes to snowboarding, which is a very recent addition to the Olympics, where they've won 35 medals. 1 medals in freestyle skiing, bobsleigh, short track speed skating, ice hockey, 18, very close to Canada's total, but still a few behind, thankfully. And also, they're currently the top-ranked country when it comes to the skeleton. The skeleton is another one of these bonkers sports. If you don't know what it is, it's basically like the luge, except you reverse it and you go head first, going down a hill at some speeds, I think, over 120 kilometers an hour, or 70 miles an hour going head first. Just seems absolutely insane to me, but there we are. They're the top-ranked country for it. So that means that the number one country when it comes to the number of Winter Olympic medals won is Norway. So a tiny little Norway has done unbelievably well for a country of its size. It's the only country to have won over 400 medals on its own, with 406 medals. Germany's teams would eclipse it if you added them all together, but that's not how the counting is done by the Olympic Committee. Norway, having gone to all the Olympics, is the number one winner by a clear margin too, well above the United States. They've hosted the Winter Olympics twice, in 1952 in Oslo and in 1994 in Lillehammer, which was the first time when the Winter Olympics and Summer Olympics split into different years. And if we go down here, look at these totals here. So they are the dominant cross-country skiing country with 129 medals. They've won a bunch of medals in speed skating. They're the best country in the world when it comes to the biathlon. They do really well at alpine skiing. They're the top-ranked country in terms of medals won at ski jumping and the Nordic combined. So well done to Norway. Were you surprised by the results? And why do you think Norway is so much better than its competitors when it comes to the Winter Olympics? Why did they do so much better despite being a smaller country than, say, Sweden or Finland? I'd love to know your opinions. Please leave a comment in the section below with your thoughts.